Okay, so welcome to the November monthly meeting. We have Elizabeth Komick. Am I saying your last name correctly?
Chomick.
Okay, here from ReWalk to give us all of the exciting updates, let us know what it is and how we can get involved. So thank you for being here. You should be able to share your screen and take it away.
Okay, hi everybody. Happy Monday. I will kind of just start by introducing myself and giving you a little bit of background. And I have a PowerPoint. And then I wanted to make sure we had plenty of time for y'all to ask questions about the ReWalk or anything I could to help answer. So I'm a physical therapist. I've been a physical therapist for 25 years. And I treated patients in the clinic for 20 years and then kind of transitioned to rehab sales. I worked for Bioness for a few years and I've been with ReWalk for 2 years. And the reason I reached out is I cover the Midwest. So I cover about 10 states in the Midwest for ReWalk. And I know that I have reached out to multiple of the United Spinal Associations, and you guys are the only one that responded. I thought everyone would want to know the latest updates and learn as much about ReWalk as possible. So anyway, that's why we're here. Before I start, does anyone have any questions before I start sharing my screen and going through PowerPoint? Okay, just holler. Keep it informal. Feel free to interrupt me with any questions that you think of along the way. All right, let me share my screen. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Is Megan, is it in presenter mode?
It is not.
Okay, there we go. Got it.
There it is.
Okay, so again, the first 2 pictures of this slide are the ReWalk. The other 3 are Restore for stroke patients. Just another option. It's what we call a soft exosuit. So again, this is pretty general. I have a couple videos for you guys. So like I said, just holler if you need anything or have questions. So ReWalk actually has other products besides the ReWalk. We are an exclusive distributor for MyoCycle, which is a functional e-stim bike for spinal cord patients. We have the Restore for anybody who's had a stroke, the ReWalk, and we just acquired Alter G, which is a unweighted treadmill. So was created by the founders of NASA. And so it kind of gives you like a weightless feeling. You can walk or run on that treadmill. So that's our newest product. And to be honest, I have not been formally trained on it. So if you have questions on that, I'll have to get back to you. We do have multiple training and clinic partnerships. We have hundreds of ReWalks in use. We have coverage through the VA with ReWalks. The ReWalk is the most natural gait and it has 6 joints of function. We have a service training support team, reimbursement team. So there's quite a few of us. There's 7 people like me across the country. In addition, we have a clinical training team. Everyone on the clinical training team is a physical therapist. And I would say out of our 7 BDMs, 5 of them are physical therapists. And even our vice president of sales is a physical therapist. So mostly clinicians, which is really helpful. And this is what the ReWalk looks like. Again, it's a powered exoskeleton. It has motors at the hip and the knee. So it can move the hip and the knee. The ankle part of it you can't see has some movement, but it goes basically inside your shoe like an orthotic. The ReWalk has been cleared by the FDA since 2014, and it can be used in the clinic or at home. There are some other exoskeletons out there. Some of them are for clinic use only, and some of them are for home use only. So it's just interesting. It just depends. Any questions so far, anybody? We're gonna kind of get in the nitty-gritty about who's appropriate and what benefits you may or may not see. So this is a little bit better picture. In addition to the motors I already spoke about, there's a tilt sensor, and that's kind of what activates the step. So remember, this is a robot, right? So it's actually moving your legs. So it wouldn't be appropriate for an able-bodied person because we set the speed and the delay in between steps. There's a ton of configurations and adjustability. And as somebody trains in the ReWalk, we make those changes so that their walking is as smooth as possible and looks as smooth as possible. So the waist pack you see on the back has 2 batteries. They're lithium ion batteries. There's a main and an auxiliary. And the ReWalk to get fully charged takes about 8 hours. And then there's actual computer that comes with the ReWalk as well to make any software changes. And then if you can see at the top, there's a remote controlled watch, which is sort of like a smartwatch. And that's actually how you control the ReWalk. So you wear the watch and you would push like, if you were sitting and you wanted to stand, there's a little button, you do sit to stand. It will lift you up out of a chair, not your wheelchair, but a bench where the ReWalk is. So basically you would transfer from a wheelchair into the ReWalk, strap it on, and then do sit to stand. And then if you were ready, you would hit the walk and then it would start walking you. And then there's another button to sit you back down when you're done. So you just have to lean. So the tilt sensor, let's just say the reason we have the tilt sensor is a safety issue. If you if you were standing and accidentally hit the sit button and you weren't ready to sit, if you don't tilt back, it won't sit you. So that's kind of what the tilt sensor is for. So there's a lot of safety features you can imagine. We have to be real careful with this. We do have special forearm crutches that you use for balance. And we're always working on the next model. So there's always a lot of research and development happening. And we get that feedback from our ReWalk users, what they would change, what they think would help. So we do what we call usability testing, where we bring anybody who has a ReWalk, we bring them into our headquarters, and it's just outside of Boston, Massachusetts. And we have them trial new things or just give us feedback. And it's actually really, really helpful. This is the big news is, I don't know how much you follow exoskeletons or anything like that, but I think after 9 years of working on it, we solidified coverage for the ReWalk through Medicare. That's a big deal. It opens it up to, the ReWalk, the MSRP for a ReWalk is $186,000. So if Medicare covers it, that's a big deal. Because most people, it's not something they can just go buy, right? Prior to this, while we were working on getting the Medicare approval, really the only coverage that we were seeing was through the VA or workman's comp, or certain states like Michigan, where they had an auto coverage policy. And sometimes if you were injured in an auto accident, your auto insurance may or may not cover it. So it's a big deal. Does anyone have any questions on that so far? We'll do questions at the end. I think you guys have more questions at the end. So the other big news is that ReWalk is the only exoskeleton that does stairs and curbs. So that just happened. I think it's only been about 7 or 8 months since we got FDA approval. We submitted for the approval and we kind of thought it would take a longer time, and they pretty much just approved it right off the bat. So we're pretty excited about that. It's just nice because before, if there was a barrier like a curb or stairs, you'd have to take the ReWalk off, put it back on, and now you can manage the curbs and stairs. I will say that not all my, we call them rewalkers, not all my rewalkers have chosen to do the stairs. Some of them have accessible homes, and that's not something they're interested in learning. So it just depends on the person. Okay, I have a little video. I hope it works. Okay, so this video is one of our rewalkers who's a veteran, and it's 3 minutes. It's kind of long, but I think it's a really good video, and I think you can kind of get a sense um, of the process and the ReWalk.
We don't have sound if there should be.
Okay, hold on. Let's see. Anything? No. Hmm. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to stop my share. 1, 2. Let me see if that works.
Point where I felt just existing. My space. So it's
I did hear something, but now I don't hear anything.
Still nothing.
Mm-mm.
If anyone's really good at Zoom. Let me see here. Hmm.
It worked for like 2 seconds. I heard something and then it stopped. I still don't hear anything.
Well, while you're trying to figure that out, what are some of the restrictions that would inhibit somebody from being able to use that?
We can't hear you anymore now.
Did you hear my question, Meg?
I did, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So sorry to pause the video on you guys. I don't know why that doesn't work. But Gene is a veteran who you just saw in the video, and his main complaint was pain from being in the chair. He'd get tight and sore. And so he was on a lot of opioids. And when he found the ReWalk, the VA had him try it to see, does it help with your pain? And it really did. He was able to go off all his opioids for pain relief when walking with the ReWalk. So that was the big deal for Gene. It was he was one of our first VA ReWalkers that really benefited so much from the ReWalk. And you saw there he was walking, I believe that's his wife. So the FDA does require anyone who uses an exoskeleton, not just the ReWalk, you have to have a trained companion within arm's length of you. So they don't have to physically assist you, but they have to be available just in case. So we'll talk more about the ReWalk training, but you have to have somebody with you that is also trained. So, all right, I'm gonna share my screen again. Okay. So we'll talk a little bit about who may be appropriate for the ReWalk. Again, FDA approved in 2014. And this was kind of these are the general indications for use. Levels T7 to L5. We do have ReWalkers who are higher than a T7, but insurance coverage will not happen unless it's T7 to L5 because those are our clear FDA guidelines right now. That may change. I'm not sure what timeline is on that because, to be honest, and I think you guys know that T7 eliminates a lot of people, right? A lot of people are higher than T7. So again, I have a gentleman in Wisconsin who's doing his ReWalk training. He had a work-related injury and his workman's comp did pay for the ReWalk, but that was after 2 years of kind of a battle. He's a T4 complete and he's really doing a great job, but it's a little extra work with higher injury because of the core strength, but it also helps that much more. So, all right. And these are, again, indications for use. You need your hands, shoulders, arms. We say full range of motion and strength because you have to use those crutches to balance. The other thing that is a big deal is healthy bone density. So we do ask that anybody who's interested in the ReWalk, that's one of the first things we ask is for them to get a DEXA scan. So I did recently, was it last week? I met with one of the doctors from Metro Health and she's in charge of the bone density testing and bone health testing. You know who I'm talking about, Megan. And she has her own opinions. She's an expert at that. So we're kind of working with her to make sure we're doing everything right with the bone density. But the big thing is, if you have unhealthy bones and are being moved around by a robot and don't have sensation, it's possible that there's a fracture, right? It's very rare, but it's possible. So we want to make sure everyone's safe that uses the ReWalk. So that's one of the requirements. Anybody who's had like a fracture in the past, we're going to be very cautious about. And we want you to be in general good health. The height requirements that we're FDA cleared for are 5'3" to 6'2". It's kind of the same thing as the levels of injury. I think we're going to be expanding the height and the weight, but you still have to be able to fit in the ReWalk, and I'll explain how we do that. There's a slide on that. I think the one thing that may not change is the weight requirements. So sometimes we have people that weigh more than 220 and we just ask them, like I have a gentleman right now who's very much interested in the ReWalk, and he's working with the dietitian and he's already lost 10 pounds. So he's real close. So the other reason for the weight restrictions is the ReWalk has 5 different size pelvic bands, and they're immovable heavy metal bands that have to go around your pelvis. So you have to be able to fit in one of those 5 sizes. And then the other, some of the other requirements is want to make sure you have full range of motion in your legs. And meaning if you were to lay flat on your back, making sure your hips go all the way flat, your knees go all the way flat, and that we can get somebody can get your ankle to a 90-degree angle. So I like to share these requirements because I think it's kind of motivation to keep yourself in good health and make sure your arms are strong, things like that. A big thing for the ReWalk to me is you have to be able to transfer independently. And we have found that people that can transfer independently, like bed to chair, chair to bed, do much better in the ReWalk because it shows they have good upper body strength and their core strength. Any questions on that so far? I know usually people have big questions about the requirements. Right now, the ReWalk is only FDA cleared for spinal cord patients, not MS or any other diagnosis. That might change as well, but right now that's what it's for. If you have any pressure sores or open sores, we obviously want them to be healed, especially where the ReWalk touches your body. We don't want you to have a sore because you're going to get pressure there anyways. I have another gentleman in Indiana, and he has a sore on his knee right where the ReWalk would touch. So we're working on getting that healed and hopefully get him up and going. So severe spasticity. So we do have people that have spasticity, and the ReWalk very much helps the spasticity, but it's also can be an issue when we're trying to get them in it. So sometimes we'll have people do like electrical stimulation to help with the spasticity so that they can do the ReWalk. No, we want to make sure you don't have any heterotropic ossifications. And then we want to make sure that anybody who uses the ReWalk is safe as far as being able to give feedback and use the watch and just cognitively be able to communicate. So we have some users from the VA that may have like a mild brain injury as a result of like a war accident or a car accident. But that's why we do a very thorough job of screening to make sure that everyone's safe. Okay, I think we kind of went over this already. All right, this is another one of our users, and this is basically saying what the goal of the ReWalk is. We want whoever's appropriate to have the opportunity to walk again, right? That's our slogan is more than walking, right? It's not just walking, it's more than walking. It's standing up, hugging family members that you haven't been eye to eye with. But there are some significant health benefits as well. Again, reducing spasticity, kind of stretching your legs out so they're not in a 90-degree angle from sitting in a chair all day. It also can help with bone density. If you're weight bearing on your legs, that can help make your bones stronger. And one of the biggest reported benefits that we see is, and I know I don't know what topics you guys talk about, but is bowel and bladder. We get so many people that say their bowel and bladder programs are so much quicker. They're so much easier when they use the ReWalk, because really sometimes people don't have another way to exercise. And the studies have shown that walking in the exoskeleton has the same cardiovascular effect as a able-bodied person walking at 3.5 miles an hour. So that's pretty good clip. Now the ReWalk does not go that fast, but that's the cardiovascular from the ReWalk is the same as an able-bodied person walking. So very good things happening. Studies also have shown that people that have spinal cord injuries are very deconditioned, right? Because they don't really have an easy way to get out and exercise. So that's another big reason. I had a gentleman who was on diabetic medication, his blood pressure was high, things like that. Since he's been using the ReWalk, he's lost 10 pounds. He was able to decrease his insulin, his blood pressure is improving. So that's a big deal. So from a physical therapy standpoint, how I kind of think about it is, let's just say you're not a candidate for the ReWalk. I would look into something like, I would make sure to try and find a way to stand, like a standing frame or a functional electrical stim, bike or something like that. Because that can help with all these physiological issues as well if you're not a candidate for the ReWalk. I'm not going to play. This is just a doctor talking about why he thinks the ReWalk is good. And basically he's saying, what all these studies have seen. So these are all the studies that have happened between 2012 and 2020. ReWalk actually started a study with the VA back in 2018, and it kind of got cut short by COVID. We were just wrapping it up and it got cut short. But it was still a really excellent study. So let's just pick out one of these. So like pain, 1, 2, 3, 4 of the studies, people reported improvements in pain. And look at the bowel and bladder column, where 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the studies noted significant improvements with bowel and bladder program. Spasticity is 4 of the studies. And then there were reported improvements in quality of life. Looks like sleep, not so much. There was 1 study. And then improved physical activity. Again, 7 of the studies. So there's a lot of psychological and physiological benefits from an exoskeleton. And again, I just happen to work for ReWalk, but there are obviously other exoskeletons that do the same thing. We have one main competitor called the Indigo. That's for personal use. And then there's the Exo, which is for clinic use only. And I honestly don't have any details about either of those, but I would guess pretty similar benefits. So this was a study that we did in 2020. And the study was honestly to see if it helped with bowel and bladder, but then we also kept track of other things. But you can see for every question about the bowel and bladder, we had at least 50% of the users report improvement. And honestly, we would have liked to have a bigger study. But like I said, COVID kind of got us on that one. So let's kind of switch gears and talk about if you or you knew somebody who was interested and appropriate for a ReWalk, what would happen? So sometimes I have a physical therapist call me who has a patient who's interested. Sometimes the patients reach out to us directly. You don't have to be in physical therapy. You can go to our website and click learn more, and there's a form you can fill out. you can, I prefer people to talk to their doctor about it and kind of, you know, make sure their doctor's on board, because the doctor's not on board, they're not going to have a prescription. It's a medical device which requires a prescription and a letter of medical necessity. And then you can be, like I said, you can be referred by your therapist. Like one of my ReWalkers right now has a friend and he referred his friend. So she'll be doing a trial. So, once you are in our system, that's when the screening, we do a ton of screening. We do, we have you fill out a form online, and then we do a phone call. And then we talked about the DEXA scan. Then if you pass all those, we do a video screen so we can kind of see your transfers, see what your range of motion looks like, things like that. We have a reimbursement team that helps with insurance and checks the insurance. If you qualify with your insurance and you pass all the other safety guidelines, then we schedule a trial for the ReWalk to see, is this something that you really want? Is something that you like? We want to make sure that it's appropriate. And then if yes, then the ReWalk stays at a trained physical therapy facility, and you have to complete basic and advanced skills in order to take your ReWalk home. So there's kind of, I think I have them on one of the slides. There's like a checklist of all the things that you have to do and be checked off by your therapist. And then your companion also has to be checked off. So things like you saw the video with Gene where he was getting on and off the elevator and kind of going over a bridge. So we want you to practice doing a ramp and going through doorways and walking in crowded areas, things like that. Oh, here we go. So basic skills are the sit to stand transfers, the getting in and out of the ReWalk, the straps. Most people can, once they get used to it, they do this on their own. And standing balance, just being able to stand and balance independently with the crutches with your companion at arm's length. Being able to use the watch, turning, again, walking through doorways, stopping, it's helpful. And then when we're done with the ReWalk, we always do a skin check to make sure there's no red areas, pressure areas, things like that. And then if you were walking in the ReWalk and needed a break, we also show you how to lean against the wall and rest, or you can lean against your companion. The advanced skills are walking and talking. They seem so silly until you're up and things get complicated. Walking in a noisy environment, reaching, opening doors and going through doorways, doing ramps, walking on different surfaces. And then we actually teach you balance skills, like if you were to start to fall, what would happen and how you would handle that. There's another skill that's not necessarily on here. It's called a graceful collapse, where what if for some reason the ReWalk malfunctioned and you lost power? That's one of the things we practice in the training, is what to do if there's a loss of power or a malfunction. It's very rare, but we want to make sure everyone feels comfortable with it. This is Andre. He lives in Germany. And he brings his ReWalk to work with him every day. And he has it down to a science how he transports it. So he stands it up by his car and then he hits the sit button, the ReWalk sits, he flips it in. He's got a little SUV. And then when he's bringing it into work, he puts it on a dolly and just wheels it with his chair. It's pretty amazing. And this is him with his son. So we have offices in Israel, Germany, and like just outside of Boston. So there's a lot of ReWalkers in Germany, and they have been FDA cleared for stairs for quite some time. There's a gentleman who broke the Guinness World Book of Records for climbing the most stairs in an exoskeleton. So this just kind of talks about if a clinic is ReWalk certified. So for example, let's just say I have a gentleman in Indiana who wants the ReWalk, and there wasn't a ReWalk facility near him. So we found a facility that was near him and was willing to be trained, and we trained their therapists on the ReWalk so that when he gets his ReWalk, he can go there for his training. And the therapists actually do benefit from that. They get a certificate. You'll see on one of the slides, they get a certificate saying I'm ReWalk certified, but they also get their continuing education hours. Usually in Michigan, I know you need 24 out contact hours for CEUs. Doctors are required for CEUs every year, so that's pretty typical. So this is what the therapist gets, is their little certificate to print out for their CEUs. And for the clinicians, they do quite a few hours of training in order to work with the patients too. We want to make sure everyone feels comfortable. And throughout training of a ReWalker, we're there for support. We can be there virtually, we can come in person. It just depends. This is what an evaluation form looks like that a therapist fills out. So if I had a therapist call and say, hey, I think I have a patient for the ReWalk, I would have them kind of fill out this form so we could kind of take a look at it and make sure, can they transfer? And it's a really nice way to keep on track and make sure everyone's on the same page. And sometimes when we do the evaluation, the person's not quite ready. Maybe they haven't stood for a while and their blood pressure drops when they try and stand in a standing frame. So then we say, okay, we want you to work on the standing frame every single day. And when you're able to tolerate 60 minutes in the standing frame without having blood pressure issues, then we get back in and reevaluate. So sometimes it's a good way just to work on all kinds of things. So this is what we measure to configure the ReWalk exactly to that person, but also to make sure someone fits in it. So just because you're 5'3" doesn't mean, it depends on how long your femur and your tibia are, but we are very specific with our measurements. I know this looks kind of weird, but it's basically what you're seeing is the outside of someone's hip is the one black dot, and then that's their knee. So we measure where we feel the bony prominences and we measure, and it's very, very specific. This is one of our ReWalkers who took almost 1 million steps and walked a marathon in her ReWalk. We do have a handful of ReWalkers who have done, regular 5Ks, things like that. And really the only tricky part is the batteries can last for about 4 hours of continuous walking. So usually you have to do a battery switch, which is obviously not a big deal, but that's the only challenge with our ReWalkers. Most people are not walking for 4 hours continuously. Okay. I hope you guys have some questions. If not, make them up.
Dawn, was your answer or your question fully answered? I believe he was asking about like the inclusion and exclusion.
Hold on. Is it in the chat? Sorry.
No,
No.
my question, you pretty much answered it.
Okay.
I was really looking at what levels are acceptable to be using the equipment. And I also was wondering, and you also answered that, was that it's mechanical, it's not stimulating, correct?
No, there's no stimulation. That's such a good question, though.
I get it. I get it. Yeah, we got it. And that, as I see it, the benefits being endurance, stamina, bowel bladder issues, bone density as well. And for those of us who've been in our chairs longer, we're waiting for the next research project.
I couldn't say that better, Don. So I'm based just north of Detroit in Michigan. And there's I would call it like
no calves.
There's a clinic near me, and it's called the Recovery Project. And it was founded by a gentleman who has spinal cord injury, a very high level. I think he's like maybe C4, C5 level. And he founded this clinic, and his partner is a physical therapist. She's a friend of mine. And she did a talk about, what their philosophy is with spinal cord injuries. And basically you always want to be ready for the next technological advancement, right? We don't know. Maybe they're going to come out with a chip that goes in the spine and then you can move again. But if you haven't stood, or if your hips are tight, if your knees are tight, if your ankles are tight, that could be a barrier. So I always tell people, just keep yourself in the best shape that you can as far as range of motion and
Sure.
standing and bone density, and as best as you can, because we don't know where technology is going to take us. It's changing all the time. And just in the 2 years I've been at ReWalk, just the amount of things that have improved for the better.
So now that you're looking at the benefits of using the ReWalk system with those who are qualified to use it, are you also seeing other aspects of those who cannot use it and say, hey, Don, or hey, you, or hey, whoever, why don't you work on this?
Yes.
You know,
Did I cut you off?
fill your cup with all these other things to work on. You know, maybe
That's why most of us are
recognize,
therapists.
and right.
Yeah,
And
because
we recognize this is not going to be for you, but something else is here.
yes. So I'm constantly and if someone's not for the ReWalk, I mean, listen, I mean, I'm technically in sales, right? But I'm first and foremost a physical therapist. So if I think, hey, you're not appropriate for the ReWalk, but here's what I think you should do, and I will then follow.
Well,
Like, Don, if you called me and said, hey, Elizabeth, I want a ReWalk, and I would say, well, you don't qualify for the ReWalk, but I will follow up with an email with a list of things for you to work on
well, you
that I
indicated
think
one of the other
would
things
benefit you.
one of the other things to use would be a standing table. I mean, that's not
Yeah.
the ReWalk, but
Mhm. It's better than nothing.
it's better than nothing.
Right. And it still keeps you loose, right? Your hips, it'll help stretch out your knees, your hips and your ankles, and get some weight bearing. It's not perfect. But that would be a big suggestion. I just and I try and educate the doctors. I've had doctors call and they say, what should we do? We don't really know exactly what to do, because Metro Health is a fabulous place, right? They have a spinal cord center. There's doctors that only do spinal cords. But if you're in the country, or if you're not in a great hospital system, these doctors may or may not know what to do. And so I was at the Cleveland VA and talking to a couple of young residents, and I said, you guys, when someone has a spinal cord injury, you prescribe them a standing frame and a functional e-stim bike, right? And they're like, well, no. And I'm like, well, you should, because otherwise we're going to see other complications, right? You want to start off with all the right equipment. So, and I know not everyone has access to that, but we have a lot of people that will go on, Facebook Marketplace or whatever, and they're buying used standing frames, or, FES bikes. Maybe they're finding a clinic where they can go there and use them. So that's really good points that you bring up. And I mean, I want what's best for everybody, right? And it's just going to be different. So
Sure. Thank you.
one of the big things I am seeing is a lot of people are doing stem cell. Have any of you guys done some stem cells? So I had a young man from Ohio go to the Mayo Clinic for stem cell. And then I also just had, in my area, there was a police officer who was shot multiple times and paralyzed. He's like 31 years old. And he went to Mexico and got a stem cell transplant just to see what happens. I haven't heard back from him to see yet, but there's a lot of things out there, and it's worth a shot. So what other questions can I answer for you?
At the beginning of your video, you showed one where it looked like it was just on one leg and somebody was walking with a crutch.
Yes, that is for patients that have had strokes. So that's one of our products. So ReWalk is our main product, is Exoskeleton. And then what you saw was the Restore, and that is for one leg only. and it's FDA cleared for spinal cord patient, or I'm sorry, stroke patients. So,
Only?
yeah, I have had a therapist put it on somebody that has MS. But if somebody had a spinal cord injury, unless it was like a Brown Secord, which is, I don't know if you guys know what that is, where it's spinal cord injury that affects only one leg and it's pretty rare. I don't think it would be enough support if you had one leg that moved, because we have a lot of people that have incomplete injuries, right? And they have some degree of
Right.
sensation and movement. It doesn't matter if you're complete or incomplete, ReWalk is still what you would want if you have a spinal cord injury.
So I'm a T11 incomplete, but my left leg is twice as strong as my right leg.
Yeah. So Brian, just to let you know, I have a young girl who is in Michigan, and she was my first Medicare delivery. So she was the first person in Michigan to get a ReWalk via her Medicare. And she has the same, her left leg she has movement in her left leg, but not her right. And she just did phenomenal with the ReWalk. And she actually has been in her chair her injury was almost 10 years ago. So
Yeah, I'm going on
she did great. How long?
6 years next month.
Okay.
But I'm actually working on, I can walk with two four-prong canes right now. And we're working in therapy right now to where when I take a step, I let go of a cane and take the step and then grab the cane when I come back down. That's why I was asking about the one leg, because that's one of my goals, is to try and be able to walk with just one cane instead of both of them.
I love it. Do you wear a brace on one of your legs when you're up and moving?
I have an AFO on my left one. I have AFOs for both of them, but I don't wear the right one.
Do any of you use CAFOs and crutches to walk? We see a lot of that, and it's just very cumbersome and heavy, and a lot of people, by the time you get up in them, it's exhausting, right? And it can
It's a workout.
Yeah. So the other thing I would caution, just from a physical therapy standpoint, is we see a lot of people have shoulder problems, right? Because if your legs don't work, you're overusing your shoulders to do your activities. So keep yourselves healthy as far as your shoulders.
I'm in the gym 3 days a week for that.
Good for you. That's a big deal. Just had a couple people that were in line for a ReWalk, and they ended up having to have shoulder surgery. So that'll be on the back burner till they're recovered. So good for you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Is anyone else in therapy right now? Or I was going to say, like, a lot of people, if they've been injured for a while or don't really do therapy, they do it on their own and work out in the gym and at home. So we don't always get to see everyone.
I'd like to chime in.
Sure.
So you said it doesn't matter if you got motion or no feeling or from the waist down?
No, I would say the majority of our ReWalk users do not have movement and do not have sensation.
Okay.
That's what it's for. It walks for you, basically. So
Okay.
yeah.
So
Sometimes it can go ahead.
What happens, like, the steps after this to see if you qualify, or how do you try to get into this?
So what I would suggest is, well, Megan has my contact information. She can share that with you, and I'm happy to have a phone call with you.
Okay.
I have a lot, I would say I call it the gauntlet. There's a lot of questions. You got to make it through the gauntlet. So, I'm happy to do that, or you can go to our website. And if you click on, I want more information or see if I qualify, it will take you to like a survey where you put in your information, and then that information gets back to me. So,
Okay.
because you guys are all in Ohio, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Ohio is my territory. So anybody from Ohio who fills out that form, it will come right back to me. So I will get your information. But however you would want to do it, Megan, feel free to share my contact information with everybody. Do any of y'all have Medicare as your primary insurance?
I have Anthem and then Medicare as the secondary,
Okay.
like a HMO.
Okay.
So Anthem is the primary, Medicare. It's like Anthem Medicare.
It's like a Medicare Advantage or a Medicare replacement,
Yeah.
I believe. Okay.
Yep.
So I will not even pretend that I'm insurance expert at all. It's not my area of expertise. But what I can tell you is Medicare approved the ReWalk. Obviously, you have to meet certain requirements, and we know with Medicare, it can be a little bit tricky.
Yeah.
However, once Medicare approves a device, then usually what happens after that is Medicare Advantage and Medicare replacements have to follow. And then once that happens, the commercial payers will follow. Now,
Okay.
don't ask me what a timeline is on that. I don't know. But that's the progression. And that's why you, like when you're trying to get a device or some sort of medical supply approved, you always start with Medicare first because they have the strictest guidelines. So if Medicare gives the thumbs up, everyone else says, oh, if Medicare is paying for it, then we will too. So just, I've learned a lot in this process about the insurance process. But Eric, one of the things that would happen is if you went to our website and filled out that form, there's a form that we will sometimes send people. I'm not exactly sure because that's more of our inside team, but what they do is have you on a secure, it's DocuSign. I don't know if you guys know DocuSign, you take pictures of your insurance cards, both sides, and it goes to our reimbursement team. And then they check to see like, yes, your insurance covers it, or hang on for 6 months and hopefully that will happen. So,
Gotcha.
and Rhonda, it looks like you put something in the chat. I didn't see it. Hold on.
I think she has Medicare UHC AARP.
Oh, okay. So what we're initially looking for is Medicare primary. And again, I always defer to our reimbursement team to double check because there's a lot of nuances to insurance. And so, like I said, if any of you are interested in your level of injury falls in that range that we talked about at the beginning, go to our website, fill out the form, and then we'll have a chat. Or again,
so all your
Megan,
information will be at the end of this video for your website, all that.
I'm going to have Megan, you can just share my contact information with everybody. It's on my email.
Yeah, excuse me. I will be sending out the replay for this. I'll probably be creating it tomorrow or Wednesday. So it'll be out by the end of the week. The email blast, if you get our chapters emails, will come out by the end of the week, and I will include your contact information in that.
Perfect. Just in case, I mean, I don't know, my email is Elizabeth with a Z .Chomic, CHOMIC, like you see on the screen, at rewalk.com. So.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So,
Okay.
any other last minute questions? We do have 2 minutes, so I don't want to cut anybody off if there's any other questions.
Well, I appreciate everyone's questions and attention, and it was kind of really nice getting to know you all. Hopefully you don't hear my husband watching Monday Night Football in the background.
Who's winning?
Yeah, what's the score?
I don't know.
It's Taylor's hometown versus Taylor's boyfriend, right?
Oh my gosh. Forget about football. It's all about Taylor Swift now.
Absolutely. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Anyway, thank you so much. I've been familiar with ReWalk for a while, but I've learned some things tonight. So I really appreciate you coming out. Everybody else, thank you for coming.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.